watched that one.
I don't think I have.
No.
Doesn't sound familiar. Oh, we're live.
Oh,
Shut up,
Halo
I'm the
theme
moderator.
song.
Shut up, all of you, shut up. This is how this starts. I'm the only voice here. Okay, sorry. Welcome, everyone. So
Hello,
we
Doug.
are in it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine, the post-apocalyptic panel. So I am joined by the lovely Ryan, Jez, and Joshua, and potentially Mike a little later on. Mike North, if you're listening, Mike, please join. So,
Yes,
so without further ado, could we have introductions, please? I will start with my favorite person, Jez.
I was waiting for it to be Joshua or anybody else, to be fair. Hello,
It's not
everybody.
because you're my
Jez.
publisher. It's not because you're my publisher, but Jez is my favorite.
Showing favoritism. I see how it works.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a few days before the transfer, too. Right then, guys. I'm Jez Cadgio. I'm all through a few different series, but the one that's post-apocalyptic is The Rise of Mankind. It starts with the Age of Stone, and we've got 6 books out so far. The 7th is out in about 2 weeks' time. And the 8th I'm currently writing, and I didn't totally forget about this panel and just jump off, leaving the sentence halfway through that I'm frantically trying to remember. Honest.
And Joshua, what about you?
I am Josh Kern. I've written around 21 books. Most of those are published. Well, actually, I've written like 25. 21 are published. I'm probably best well known for Game of Gods, Dungeon Ilaria, and the Nameless Chronicles. I just barely released Wetworks, non-LitRPG thriller that just came out the other week. So,
Congrats.
and most of those books are apocalypse. So
amazing. And I suppose we'll ask Ryan too.
I suppose.
Well, I'm Ryan DeBruin. I write almost primarily in the apocalyptic genre. I have Ether Collapse, System Misinterpret, and a Royal Road serial going on called New System Who This. Only one series is not post-apocalyptic, and that's Shooter. So
Fantastic. So I guess to start the ball rolling, the first question that I'd sort of ask is, what drew you to post-apocalyptic as a theme, as a world, as you know, because like I suppose you could argue that it's like, oh well, it was a very popular genre before we all got into it, but was there a particular draw that made you say there's thematic reasons that I wanted this? So if you could maybe give your reasons as to why, and we'll start with Ryan so he's less time to think.
Thank you so much for this. Bullying at its finest. So very legitimately, I remember starting into LitRPG, reading obviously The Land and what was around. And when I read my very first post-apocalyptic book, I just loved the fact that, you know, kind of being able to picture waking up the next day and that's what happened. You know, like suddenly you're able to level, you've got stats, you know, you're fighting monsters. And I that was 100% what I felt drew me into the genre, is that, you know, it lent so much to the creativity and imagination for me that I was able to put myself, you know, every night I went to bed, I picture myself waking up with exactly whatever story I was reading. You know, Rendedly Ghost Town was probably the first, and then System Apocalypse by Tao. And it was just like, I could picture myself in that world, and it just captured me.
Okay. And Josh, what about you?
Well, I mean, obviously, I like the LitRPG aspect of everything with the leveling up, the game aspect, but for the strictly apocalyptic elements, I would have to say that actually probably came from my parents, because my parents are preppers / non-preppers. I mean, they won't admit it, but my dad has ADHD bad, and he flips from project to project. And I mean, he has a freaking sawmill in the backyard. And I mean, he is like, okay, we're not prepping for the end of the world, but we're prepping for the end of the world. I mean, that's his entire thing. Yeah, writing for this kind of stuff was always going to be something I did, just because it's something my dad does, even though he doesn't admit it. So
No, I kind of love that. It's like, it's not hoarding, it's preparation.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the backyard, there's a horde.
Jez, what about you?
See, I find that so strange at times because in the UK we don't have that. We just have like lunatics and alcoholics, and that's pretty much it. There's no name for it. It's just crazy people. For me, probably because I think that if you introduce a system to the world as it is, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to be the end of the world, because you're going to have some people that are going, hey, this is great, I'm going to be really responsible. And that's like 3 of them. And everybody else is like, fuck this is brilliant. And everything would just go wrong. I mean, I can't imagine a world where people had individual power to that kind of level that didn't go completely fucking insane.
So, okay, then on that sort of topic of like, that society with given systems and powers and things like that would probably go batshit crazy. Do you think that the scarcity element of a post-apocalyptic society makes it a much easier or believable playground? Because it's like there's a lot less people, the sort of, resources that you'd be able to take advantage of are more minimal. So what are the sort of like, do you know what I mean? As in like, do you feel that there's, that's one of the main draws of post-apocalyptic, as in like that it's so like fantastical future? Just kind of get your like basic thoughts on it. So we'll start with Ryan again, because it was a really cryptic question.
Yeah, super cryptic. So much so that I was actually lost. So can somebody else answer first, and I'll try to.
No. Give it a try, Ryan. As in, like, it's only your professional. This is your brand. Okay.
I saw Jez nodding. He must have understood the question. I'm putting him on the spot.
Oh, I did. I'm just not willing to say it.
No, I'll go. So I've actually talked about this one with my brother a fair bit, and it's one of the things we really hate about a lot of like popular books, like the Hunger Games and all of like the dystopian novels, where yes, I'm waving to you, where all of these like advanced societies that are popular in them, they never explain how they have these advanced tech and how they actually work. So in post-apocalyptic books, like you have all of these resources in the beginning, and then they would inevitably fall apart because you've used up all the resources. And in like Hunger Games, they say, yeah, we have all this advanced tech, but they never actually have the mines. They never have the factories. They never have all these other things. And so like with the post-apocalyptic books, I really actually enjoy it because you get to rebuild everything from the ground up. And that, I mean, for me at least, that's why I really like them, because you actually get to do things properly. And that's one of the things I did with the Game of Gods, is he was exploring the need for the factories, for the food resources, for everything with each of the towns. One town was dedicated for like everything. I mean, at least for me, that's why I was enjoying it. So
amazing. And Ryan, were you able to figure out the question in that time?
Somewhat, yeah. Somewhat. So I think.
Cool.
I mean,
We'll
that's not. Yeah, I'm not even sure if that was the question. So.
Cool.
So I think it's really an interesting concept, because once a lit RPG system is on the planet, is the resources the scarcity, or is humans the scarcity? What is it, right? And so I think levels and powers and all that stuff, the more powerful people you have, the more protection you'll probably have against those monsters that are spawning, the dungeons, whatever is in your story. And then they have to, all these powerful people that probably only care about leveling, have to start figuring out how they're going to supply the people that are their hangers on with food and everything. And so kind of like what Joshua said, building up, farms again, or some sort of supply chain that's going to be able to consistently feed people. And it might not just count on monsters being eaten or not. And I think I've heard kind of Tao answer this one time, where he actually was debating whether he could make his monsters edible or not. And that was a huge deal, because if you don't make it edible, it's, all your structures that are feeding your populace are probably completely wiped out, and starvation is a big problem. Whereas if the monsters are edible, your resources are definitely not as hindered. So the scarcity of food definitely changes based on what you put in the elements of your book. So I hope that answered the strange question, Brian.
How dare you? I'm going to make them all really cryptic, just for you.
I love it.
Janice, what about yourself? Anything to add?
Yeah, I like the scarcity side of it, because I always think that if you have people as they are, if the world is staying exactly as it is and suddenly everybody's got power, where does it begin where people start killing each other to level and trying to collect the resources? What starts that sort of race where people are going, right, you know what, I really don't like John down the road. I'm going to go down there, kick his door in and stab him in the face. It's that sort of like, right, okay, we've got limited resources. All the structure's gone. All the structure's gone, so there's no more food coming in. We need to secure the local supermarket and grab all the food we can. But everybody else is going to be doing the same. And it's that sort of start where people start to panic. And that gives, I think, the impetus to start the violence ball rolling. And I like that.
No one needed that caveat. We all knew. So I guess the next question, in a very, very simplistic manner, for no reason. Do you believe that the worlds that you've created provide a cautionary tale, or like maybe lessons for readers? Ryan?
Yes and no. Like I think the big one that is a common trope across apocalyptic books I've read is just the fact that, you know, one relatively simple change, or if the environment becomes somewhat hostile, is, you know, how many people are used to our present day society and what it brings and how they're surviving within that society. And one change, in my opinion, wipes out minimum 60% of the population of the world. And I think that's the cautionary side to it is, you know, all of us are probably saying the same thing, which is there's a lot of people out there that are used to present day living conditions. And what's going to happen if that changes? Like I don't know if anybody else is watching it, but I'm watching some of the, you know, the new Elon Musk stuff where he's sending the Starship up to space, and some of the new finds on like ancient Egypt and how there was a, you know, I think it's ancient Sumeria or whatever came before them, and they might have been wiped out by, you know, an asteroid or something apocalyptic. And I think it's kind of fun to see because that's how fragile society is, right? So that's, yeah.
Josh?
What was the question again?
It's essentially, what is the cautionary lessons for readers that are maybe represented within your books?
Don't be stupid. I mean, that's the main question.
We've already failed.
Yeah.
We have Brian
as a
moderating
society.
the panel, so
Herder.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, everybody's gonna die if this honestly happens. I mean, if World War III happens, I'm driving straight towards the closest like destination for a nuclear warhead. I mean, I don't want to survive it. Everybody's like, dude, I'm building a bunker. I'm like, no, I'm driving straight for the warhead. I don't want to survive. No, there are certain cautionary tales in all of the books and what people I think are gonna act like. And yes, there are extreme levels of douchebaggery just because everybody is a douchebag. But I don't know. Lessons per se, just because no, I don't think people are taking away the lessons. They're all looking for the loot goblin, the action, the you know, everything else. When I actually write the stuff as the way I think it actually is, I get comments on all the stories about like, oh man, 90% of the people in this story are just utter a-holes. Nobody's like this. And I'm just like, dude, have you been outside lately? So I don't think anybody's actually taken lessons away from it. So no, yeah.
It's worrying how much Jez is nodding. Jez?
No, I am totally on board with that. The amount of people that say to me, oh, it's just always, people are always stabbing you in the back. And it's like, have you experienced people before? I don't recommend it. It's too people-y.
Yeah.
The world's full of dickheads. In all honesty, I don't think anybody's looking for any kind of a lesson from my books. I think they're looking for popcorn fiction. It's just like, you know, it's like watching a Marvel movie. You're not looking at it there for the deep thematic construction. You're looking at them. Explosions! Things go boom! People get hit. That's pretty much my level.
I have a feeling I might need to rubbish all of my questions. But I'm going to try one more time, okay? And we're going to go straight back to you, Jez. What is your thoughts on kind of like, because like on the topic of people being people-y and on the topic of douchebaggery, thank you for that one, Josh. the sort of moral ambiguity, because when you try and say like, okay, we're in post-apocalyptic, law and order kind of went out the window. It's like probably the strong reign supreme and things like that, or whoever was able to mobilize or organize fastest as a new faction or a new kind of group. So the question I would have is, how do you kind of create this sort of like the moral ambiguity of reader expectation of what a post-apocalyptic society would be versus your vision of reality? As in, like, so how do you kind of like find that balance between the two? Of like, you of course could have just like an edgelord being like, oh my god, like we're all going to die anyway, so let's just Mad Max this shit. Or you like, so what's your sort of like way to kind of like toe the line between reader expectation and your genuine belief of how this post society that you've built would work? And start with you, Jez.
In all honesty, being sensible about it, I always think that it's, if you start as it is right now, if you take baby steps along the line, because so many things, you look at sort of the last Star Wars film, somehow Palpatine survived. Like, what the fuck, people? I mean, I'm sorry, but no. You could have at least come up with an excuse. There was a million of them there. Somehow he survived. We can't be fucking asked to put it in. But if you're starting with this and you're taking it step by step by step by step, the food's gone. Okay, there's always going to be a couple of assholes who are getting out there. Yeah. So some assholes are going out there. They're going to start trashing. They're going to start robbing places. You always accept that there's going to be a few. It's not the vast majority of people. It's just those dicks that are going to do it. But when they start, once they break into you're a perfectly reasonable person. This is your store. You've built your entire life around building this store. You invested in it. This is what feeds your family. These two dickheads from down the road just come along, kick the door in, and run off with a load of stuff. You're like, well, tomorrow the power might come back on and everything might go back to normal, but I've just lost like a third of the stuff I've worked for my entire life. So the logical steps are going to be, well, I'm going to defend this until things are sorted out. Right, well, things might not get sorted out. This might be all the food me and my family have. I'm going to defend this food to them, and then somebody else comes in, and you're going to take little steps along the road to the point where you go, and well, actually, no, I'm going to hunt that guy down and kill him because he's got food. And it's that tiny little logical steps which I find the most important in it, because if you just go, somehow Palpatine survived, you've skipped all of this believability and build into your world. And that was probably a bit of a random.
No, it's absolutely fine. It was way more coherent than anything Ryan has said thus far. Ryan, go on.
So I think what's interesting with that, and like kind of going to the douchebaggery side of things, is everybody does seem to think for some reason that they are going to survive if an apocalypse happens. Like, we're all the center of our own world, and we all believe we're going to live. And Josh said something kind of funny, which is, I'm driving straight into the world, right? You got to realize that if you're not selfish, you're probably not going to survive. Like, you might have a small chance, but probably not. So you got to be selfish. And we've had something akin to an apocalypse in the last 4 years with COVID. And I'm still seeing signs at like Costco that say we will not accept returns of sanitary wipes, of antibacterial stuff, of the things that people were hoarding just so they would have, and they didn't care that other people wouldn't have this when they just thought they needed it, right? So it already shows you the level of that people will go to. And if a few people are doing that, well, what is that going to do to you as a person? If you're not willing to go to their level, that means you're not going to eat, you're not going to get that. So you either have to become somewhat selfish and a douchebag or an asshole, or you're probably going to get wiped out.
And what about you, Josh?
Well, I never said being a douchebag was bad. And
Words to
pointing
live
at me,
by.
Jazz, when you said the two bad people next door. But yeah. First off, what was the question again? Since I'm like the fifth person in line,
There's 4 of us here, and I'm the moderator. How are you in charge of systems?
I can't count.
Oh
Okay?
yeah, he's level 48. Yeah. Sorry.
Level 48 comes after level 12. Okay, we all know this.
Yeah. You know what? I've just decided that we're just going to skip you now because you weren't paying attention.
Well, thank you.
I
had
also
to write
forgot
out
the
my
question.
new title.
The truth comes out.
Yeah,
I wasn't paying attention for a very good reason.
yeah. No, that's totally fine. As in, like, so I think it wasn't the moral ambiguity one, was it? Yeah. Geneva's like, you should probably write the questions in so your people don't forget them. I'm like, I'm fine.
No, that's too much work.
Way too much work.
So I've got a question. If you don't mind me taking over for a quick sec, Ryan.
Geneva, mute him. No, Ryan, go on, please share your
one
wisdom.
of the debates I've had with a ton of post-apocalyptic authors is what classifies post-apocalyptic, because we have so many books where post-apocalypse happens on Earth and the people are on the planet. But then we have other ones like Reborn Apocalypse, Dungeon Crawler Carl, I'd say to a certain extent, they're still on the planet, but it's no longer the planet Earth as we know it. So what to you signifies like post-apocalyptic? I've always argued on the side that as soon as humanity goes anywhere, humanity is what we're writing from, not so much the planet that we live on. But I've had arguments with people that believe the other way, so I'm curious what other people think. We'll start with Brian.
At least, it's
No,
right after the apocalypse. No, I'm interrupting you just so I don't forget this time.
Oh, good call.
Write it down. The whole private chat for this.
We all know I have the memory of a goldfish, okay?
Also, shut up, Rob. I'm the moderator here. You spelled Brian
I'm
wrong.
taking over this time. No, for
So-
me, it's right after the apocalypse. I mean, for
The hints on the name.
The Nameless Chronicles, I had one where it was building up to the apocalypse, and then the last book was labeled post-apocalypse because the apocalypse had just happened. So, like, until then, it wasn't post-apocalypse. It was just that one book that was post-apocalypse. But I mean, for using your example, I would still count Dungeon Crawler Carl as post-apocalypse just because they were still rebuilding and yeah, well, I mean, still, if it's still in the rebuilding phase and they are still coming up from the ashes, I would still say it's still post-apocalypse. If they are in the dystopian phase or anything else, then I would say it's no longer post-apocalypse. But I mean, that's just my personal take on it.
There's another 38 minutes.
Best question on the panel and didn't even come from Brian.
And I know, like, Maria, be nice to me. Welcome. So, yeah, because you asked the question, I'm going to answer it. I think that if you go for the reader expectation, first of all, that's a key thing. Like, if you look at Quest Academy, which is my series, that is an urban setting and it is also fantasy. But is it an urban fantasy? No, because they all want to be banging werewolves. So, like, now it's like, an apocalyptic
I love
event.
the definition of that. No fucking werewolves in mine. That's the only reason it's not an urban fantasy.
Yeah,
Contemporary fantasy.
yeah, and this is the thing. It's like, so if I went to at one of these conventions and said like, hey, I write urban fantasy, and they're like, oh, like the Dresden Files, I'd be like, absolutely not. So, you know what I mean? So when you're going into this, it's like, what do the readers perceive post-apocalyptic to be? And that is usually a certain setting, a certain period, a certain, like, all of these things that have certain thematic elements. So would people consider my story to be post-apocalyptic? Probably not. Some would, and be like, well, yeah, it is, as in, like, humanity is now in, like, small pockets. But others would be like, no, it's not a wasteland. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, just you didn't have an orange cover. And it's like, okay, I guess. Like, if it's not Mad Max, it's not post-apocalyptic. Go fuck yourself. So I totally get it with that. But again, it really, really depends. Like, and the hand wavium is something that a lot of people really don't like. Sal enjoys steak, and people are like, are there fucking cows pasturing on the, like, top of skyscrapers? I'd be like, that is a terrible idea, but I love it. It's now canon. So yeah, Ryan, do you want to go around to someone else to get an answer from them? Jez is the last one.
Yeah, Jez, you're the only one.
Sorry, I'm still stuck on banging werewolves.
Yeah, actually, Brian's
right.
fourth book, one of them has a weave that turns him into a werewolf, and Sal is going to bang her, so that he can put urban fantasy on his cover, I think.
Okay, first of all,
Harem, that one.
nice try pretending you read my books. And if anything, it would be Sinclair who is able to turn into demons. And then we don't know.
I love that.
No, you know what? He actually needs to have this as a subtitle on the book. There is werewolf banging in this book.
No.
So
No,
it's now urban fantasy.
It has to be called Prowler Bang. Because that's what he turned into. He turned into the Prowler. But yeah.
Sorry, Jess, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I saw an opportunity. I took it.
Oh god. Yeah, definition of post-apocalyptic is apocalypse post. So it happens after the apocalypse. What's an apocalypse? It's when everything goes tits up more than we've already had. I mean, I'm a big believer that I was saying it when the time came, and when the plagues came, I was one of the people at the beginning of it saying, "There's too many people on this earth. We need another plague," which felt a little bit like on the nose at that stage. But then, so yeah, I'm kind of waiting for the next round. I've been a big believer that post-apocalyptic does need a massive apocalypse first, where, as Brian says with his book, it's a case of people are traveling from this safe zone to this safe zone because the vast majority of it is not safe. There is an apocalypse. Literally, it's trashed everything. It's trashed all these places, and humanity is now in little safe zones. So, by definition, the rest of it's fucked. So.
Yeah, I just let him continue because he was talking about my story. So Robert had a question there being like, which author's world would you want to survive in? So we'll go with the man that's driving towards the nuclear warhead first. Now, Josh, where would you like to survive? Like whose world?
I mean, there's a couple options, but I mean, certainly not a post-apocalyptic one. I want either
that's the panel. You have to do it in
or
post-apocalyptic.
someone's cozy fantasy one. I mean,
No.
I want easy life.
No, we are on it's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. You have to do it in a post-apocalyptic world, and it can't be your own.
Oh, it can't be
that's cheating.
my own?
No, because
I totally know
it's
the rules
cheating.
for those ones.
So I know where shit is in mine.
Let's see. Jez's would be interesting because I could totally go murder hobo on those ones. Just loot everything. Go, I mean, come on, everybody's a walking meat bag on those ones. Ryan's?
A caveat to that is that if you're going into Jez's world, you will have an American accent surrounded by British people without law and order.
Yeah, I'd get stabbed immediately. So nope, can't do Jez's. Ryan's? I don't know. Aether would be interesting, but I have a feeling I'd get stepped on by something on his. Gaia would probably get pissed at me for some reason. So I can't choose his. I don't know. I'd probably have to choose one of the ones on Royal Roads, like Defiance of the Fall or Primal Hunter or something. I mean, Primal Hunter has an entire universe there that I could go, explore a world. I mean, it's kind of lame to choose one of the super popular books, but I'd probably go with one of those.
Right.
So yeah, Primal Hunter.
Yeah, and I actually was thinking Primal Hunter mostly because it has a tutorial. Like, if I could pick one, I would pick something that had a tutorial or at least a scalable level difficulty. And Defiance of the Fall had that too, right? You were contained to your, I want to say it was an E rank planet, or maybe it was D. I don't remember, but that's what Earth starts as. Whereas like an Ether Collapse and System Misinterpreted, just kind of, there is no scalability. It's just apocalypse has happened. We're dealing with S-class monsters, whatever, right? And yeah, I think I wouldn't pick Jez's. I think I would die very quickly. And Josh, I've read yours, and the gods are not nice. They're not nice. So, I don't want that either. Like, I don't want to suddenly just be smited. I'd like to, survive or die on my own power, which I think Primal Hunter or Defiance of the Fall, some of that lends itself to. The scary thing is that the really power create, like the Defiance of the Fall and like those things where you have superpowers out there, you could just die going off world for the first time too. So you survive so long, and then suddenly it's like,
And just for any viewer that's thinking that Ryan de Bruin has a heart of gold and he's this lovely, wholesome Canadian, in one of his stories on Royal Road, the main character gets hit by a meteor repeatedly. It just gets hit by a meteor and another one, then he drowns in muck, mud, and everything, and like filth in a sewer. So yeah, not ideal.
Yeah, that was.
Jez, which world would you like to be in?
I don't know. It'd be one of two, I think. First of all, I'm not sure if it would qualify as post-apocalyptic, because I would say the land, simply because there's so many things where they're coming about across, like, all these old civilizations that have been lost for 1,000 years or whatever and buried. So because of these sections that are the remaining that are total, like villages, for example, something must have happened at one point that actually just wiped everything out. And the magic, the spread of the world, and the possible being able to find and loot all these things would give a nice sort of expectation to it. The other side, if not that, would probably be yours, Brian. And the reason for that is that people are generally nicer. All of our books, people are twats. There's no two ways about it. They're bastards. They're chocolate-covered bastards, but they're bastards. Sometimes they pretend to not be bastards, but that's the only difference. In yours, you've got an entire system built around training people to be heroes, where people are trying to help each other. And yes, obviously, we'd want Sal's ability, because in the latest one, he's definitely getting OP in some respects. And it's just so, it's one of those that you read it and you feel a bit more like, oh, yeah, that was good, as opposed to mine where you're like, what the fuck just happened to me? And yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for that. So, Ryan, what's your next question?
Well, I did see one, and it does lend itself really well to this panel, because I've been wondering this forever. How long after the apocalypse can post-apocalyptic genre contain? Because I read, so I had written System Misinterpret, for example, and people told me it's not post-apocalyptic, even though in my mind it was, but that's because it's been X amount of years since the apocalypse. So I don't remember who asked it, I'm sorry, but it was back in
It was Doug, I believe.
Doug?
But,
okay.
But like Apocalypse Now isn't a post-apocalyptic, and it isn't even an apocalyptic. It's just like a load of guys going around on a boat. So like I would imagine that yeah, it's very hard to determine.
Yeah. But this is the question that you didn't answer the question.
I'm the moderator. I don't have to. So Ryan, now answer your own question.
Oh, well, clearly I wrote a book and called it Post-Apocalyptic, even though it was hundreds of years after the apocalypse. So I believe that as long as society as we know it has somewhat ceased to exist, and this is a new, this is now what has come of it, I think that's still post-apocalyptic, but I don't know.
Very weak answer. Jez, would you like to do better?
Well, I'd like to do better. I probably won't, though. I believe that if a civilization has ended or has had like a nexus point where everything has changed, then by definition it is post-apocalyptic, whatever's survived and come back about. So, I mean, by that definition, we are post-apocalyptic from, the hunter-gatherers and go way back when it was wiped out situations. So I'd say at the end of it, what it comes down to is it's my book, bitches. And I decide if it's post-apocalyptic or not.
And Josh?
I mean, I kind of already answered that in the earlier one. If they're still picking up from the ashes, it's still post-apocalyptic. I mean, look at Fallout. I mean, the game series. The apocalypse happened 100, 200 years before that game series actually starts up, and it still obviously qualifies as post-apocalypse. If they're still rebuilding, it's post-apocalypse. It doesn't matter if it happened 1,000 years ago. If they're still rebuilding, it counts. Horizon Zero Dawn, love those games, but they're obviously still rebuilding, even though the apocalypse happened however long ago. Doesn't matter if they have advanced technology. If they haven't rebuilt into a actual cohesive, fully unified community like we have now, then it still counts.
So a less facetious answer would be like, if your apocalypse was caused by a comet, it's like after when the comet hits, you're now post-apocalyptic. As in, like it's an apocalyptic event, and if you're alive, you're now in the post-apocalypse. As in, like, if it is a war and that war is ongoing, but you know, like you have like grown up in that time, or like you are now still in post-apocalyptic because you survived. As in, like, if you have survived after the bad thing happened, you're post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, if it happened, it's post-apocalyptic. If it's ongoing, it's apocalypse. At least that's my take on it.
So if, for example, the new civilization that comes along works its way up to this point, and this is where the last civilization was at, and then you continue past that point, so you've now gone past the precursor civilization, that would then be sort of into civilized times again, possibly. But before that, until you've passed that level of technology, post-apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with that. But I mean, there's always the other step as well when you enter books like The Hunger Games, which I mentioned earlier, where you have the whole dystopian society, but they don't explain how they actually got there, which is where the whole cohesive community and actual society steps into play, where you actually have to, you know, have a working system. Hunger Games never had a working system. They just mentioned a bunch of, you know, districts that didn't actually function. So
now here's a interesting one. Have you, with the post-apocalyptic theme in mind, have you tailored your systems and progression systems in a way that represents the post-apocalypse versus the likes of a fantasy or isekai? Like, you know, is someone rocking in as like, I'm a paladin, and people are like, what the fuck is that? Or as in, like, no, I'm a new creator, or you know what I mean? Like, have you done anything specific for the genre with your systems? We'll start with Ryan.
Okay, so I think one of the interesting parts that I usually add into like, especially Ether Collapse, is the fact that people that were gamers seem to have an advantage in a lot of these, or, you know, all the main characters are ex-gamers, because of the fact that once you introduce a system, if you have some sort of familiarity with it, you're going to probably have a leg up on your competition. And you got to think, like, how often, you know, how many people around you, from, you know, even from my point of view, all my friends might have played video games, but on my sports side of things, when I was playing professional sports, not a lot of them did. You know, it was kind of, they were into different things. And if I had asked them, they were like, oh yeah, I played a video game when I was 7. And you're like, oh, okay, so you have no idea what would happen in these books. So I think that's the one thing that I've done, in the sense of, you know, it not only does it, you know, help your main character to make them somewhat familiar with gaming, but it also, I feel like, really makes the reader kind of able to interact with the book more, because if you're reading in the lit RPG genre, you're probably still a gamer. I think, at least, you know, like tabletop or, like, you know, video game, whatever.
Josh, what about you?
So whether or not the knowing the information helps, you mean?
No.
No.
Not at all, Josh. Jesus fucking Christ. So how have you tailored your systems?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you remember now.
Now I know. Well, for Game of Gods, it was just working with the main character himself to help explain the system from the gods, mainly because he had slept through everything. For like the Nameless Chronicles, I didn't actually tailor it for them because the post-apocalypse hadn't happened yet on that one. So I don't generally do a whole lot of tailoring for them. For a series I'm developing right now, it's going a little step farther, in that the tutorial is going to be, let's say, a little bit more comprehensive than it would usually be, since most people aren't gamers. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to go with that per se. It's an idea I've been juggling a bit, just because it would be a little bit slower of a start, which is what I tend to do anyways. But this would be much slower than I like anyways. But I mean, with that kind of a thing, it would help explain it to everybody. And with my original books, I was working with Game of Gods to help introduce everything to my parents to get them into like lit RPG anyways, since they weren't gamers, and it helped to do that. And this one would do that even more so. But yeah, it was. I kind of lost my train of thought there.
No one noticed.
Yeah, I'm sure. The comprehensive tutorial was the entire idea, where it would help explain it to like the old people, the grandmas, the granddads, everybody who wasn't actually a gamer, even though that actually is a lot of people, because most people do play games in some form these days. So that's kind of an idea I was taking for a new series, but yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it or not.
And what about you, Jez?
I sort of do change things in that I like to integrate the system with the person. So they're one of the characters, for example, in Rise of Mankind, she gets a paladin option. And the reason she gets a paladin option is it's intrinsic to who she is as a character. So she's wanting to be this person. She's wanting to stand up for the weak. She's wanting to do all of this. While everybody else is like, fuck this shit, I want to raid the place. I want to do it. So they're getting completely different. So she has got a paladin class. He's like fucking raider. He's like, hey, this is brilliant, trash the place. Because I always feel that the system is integrated with the mind of the person that's doing it as well. So 50-50.
Now, here's an interesting one, because like we have American, British, and Canadian on this. As you see with a lot of the media, like within like manhwa or like web novels and stuff that come from Korea, Japan, or China, Korea, yeah. They have a very like nationalistic thing where it's like usually if there's ever a world conflict, it's their country that has to protect the weaker other countries. Have you ever, when writing a story, been like, ooh, American readership could probably make them the superpower? And have you like, been like, how have you towed the line of like, don't want to piss anyone off with how certain countries dealt with the apocalypse? So we'll maybe start with Ryan.
You're such a jerk. All right. I think it's kind of an interesting concept, because you're right. Like, I mean, you read any of the post-apocalyptic and it has to be seen through a lens. And I think I actually got in a bit of trouble for mine originally when my first book of Ether Collapse came out, just because I was Canadian and I started my main character in Canada, and people for some reason believed that meant I was copying System Apocalypse. So, in both cases, I think what I did for Ether Collapse a little bit is, America and Canada and a lot of those places that have such a huge landmass are going to be less organized than places like China or Japan or India, because there's so many people in such a small place that they're going to have a lot more survivors per square foot, whatever, cubic foot, whatever it is. And I think that is kind of how I did it, just to, hopefully explain to Americans why, yes, they have a very powerful military, but in some sense that might not help them in the apocalypse, because they have to cover, this, what is the US the third, the second, I always forget where they are for landmass. Like it's like Russia, US, Canada, maybe. But anyway, it's, that's the way I covered it. Is Canada's completely boned because we have 30-something million, and so they're Rocky's very lucky to have survived. So that's the way I kind of tried to, I guess maybe even hand wavy him that a little bit, in the sense that our readership is mostly American, but I don't really focus too much other than on small groups of survivors in those big countries.
And Jez.
I did a little bit integrating some of the American way of looking at things in the UK side for Rise of Mankind, in that I gave access to guns a lot more. Now, there are logical reasons for it. There are army bases in the area where we are. There are firearms trained officers in the area. So I made it to a level that is achievable, but I made them slightly more easily reached than would be commonly done, just because I know Americans like their guns. And it comes down to, I have a firm belief that everybody in America should be given all the guns they could possibly carry. I just don't believe that any of you should ever be trusted with ammunition.
That's because you've met Michael Head.
Yeah.
That's why. Michael Head is the entire reason.
Please, he'd make his own ammunition, and then he'd shoot himself in the foot.
with 550 cord. Sorry. So, Josh, over to you.
I've actually done it a few different times in different series. I don't remember which ones, but usually it's America handles the situation all right. But I mean, we're no longer like the dominant superpower. It's usually that like everybody screws up equally in my books. Because I mean, China. Well, I mean, they're a communist nation, and they generally end up not doing too well just because their citizens aren't protected. But like Russia generally used to end up halfway decently, because they were actually halfway decently protected. That's not the case anymore. But for the most part, all nations would end up protecting their borders or their citizens equally well in certain cases. And that's how I handled it in my books on a case-by-case basis. I mean, it really just depended on the situation. Zombies, for like the Ridden, I didn't get to explore it too much until like the very last chapter, just because that didn't go international. Game of Gods, Charles went, worldwide, and he got to see how everybody handled it. And yeah, they handled it fairly well in each of those countries. And that was because, well, not just because everybody actually handled it well. It wasn't an America thing. It wasn't a country thing. It was just because people were actually being people and looking out for each other. And I mean, that has more to do with the people instead of the countries. So, but yeah, America just doesn't really become a dominant feature in a lot of these books. It's not a nationalism thing, at least for me. So
Perfect. And because we're kind of coming up towards the end, I wanted to, do a little bit of a fun one. So in a post-apocalyptic society, now Kyle had asked a question as a joke. After reading all of these authors' books, which of them would you want to survive with you? So I'm going to format that question a little differently. All of you have to pick a dream team of 3 authors that will be with you, and you have to give your reasons why. Now, to give you time to think, I'm going to, give my pick of probably having Chatfield, Michael Head, and then Joe Dan, because I feel like I could outrun him if shit went bad.
You're a dick.
wow.
I'm going to agree with you on most of that. I'm not going to have Joe Dan, though. I'm not just for that, but I'm going to have Chatfield because he knows what he's doing generally, and the camera is playing silly fuckers with me again. So I'm going to have Chatfield. I'm going to have Head, and there's a third option. I had somebody a second ago, and it's just totally gone. But the reason I'd have Head is because he would find all the guns. He would find any kind of weapon he possibly needed, and he will also be the victim of that weapon. I'm a firm believer that the reason that Head has so many accidents and has been in so many situations is because he is just so dangerous. It's his own team. They've been dressing up and trying to kill him. It's not even the enemy, because he's just that mad. Chatfield knows what he's doing in pretty much any situation. And I'd probably have Nathan Amai for the pure survivalist side of it.
Yeah.
Oh, and the bickering would be amazing between him and Head. But
It'd be great. I'd be at the back just cracking a beer watching.
I don't know why, but I also think that Tao with his walking stick would just go out in a blaze of glory. It would be spoken about forever. I just think that would be incredible, but I want a surviving team. So we'll go over to you, Josh.
Well, I mean, I was going to actually use most of those ones. I was going to use Nathan just because, I mean, he's the hillbilly. He knows everything. He knows how to survive. And then I was going to say Michael Head for the exact same reasons as Jez. He knows all the guns, and then he's going to shoot himself in the foot. But I mean, he's also going to... Huh? Yeah. But he's also going to survive because that's his entire thing. He is indestructible. I mean, he's going to heal from all of it. So he's gonna limp up behind you guys 5 days later and be like, "Hey, why'd you guys leave me behind? My foot is still here." I mean, it's gonna be miraculous, but he's still gonna find you guys. He's gonna heal up, and then
You'll see it by the lightning strikes. Be like,
Yeah.
oh, Michael Head's over there.
Exactly. He's gonna like just show up like a week later, and he'll shoot himself again, and he'll just keep reappearing like some freaky zombie guy. But he's always gonna be there right when you need him. And then I was just gonna choose Jez because I mean he has his naginata. I mean he'll be able to stab things from a distance, you know.
Oh, no. Occupational asthma. You'll be running away and then he'll just go.
Yeah, to be fair.
And he'll be like, take the naginata. Take the naginata.
Yeah, and you see, when he falls down, I can steal it from his corpse.
Amazing. It's honoring his memory.
Exactly.
Ryan.
So I'd definitely pick Dr. Kong, just because Doctor is pretty much right there. I'd like to have that. Then I would, if it was in my system, Ether Collapse, and it would heal the person, I would pick Tao in a heartbeat. He's one of the few people who has classical weapon training in the sense of not guns. So in my world, guns really don't do much against the monsters. So I'd want Tao on that team if he was to no longer have, I believe it is it knee issues. I think he's got like a little. That's why he sometimes at cons you see him limping a little bit. But I would love to have Tao on the team. And then the last one I'd pick is Brian because I'd love to see him die. Actually.
Wow. Absolutely.
Just
Wow.
straight up front about that one. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was a good pick. I think you guys all should change your pick because now that you realize that that's an opportunity.
Wow. So rather than having someone capable, you would rather have someone that would be a meat shield and die.
Spite, yeah.
I started
You
with
pick me
Jodan.
every time on
I
the
started
first
with Jodan. So like I respect the game.
Yeah. Oh no.
So
we're all thinking
What
of
are
who
your-
could we
your
get that we
picks,
could just
Brian?
sacrifice
Come on, man.
now, aren't we?
okay, no, actually, based on that answer, who's your sacrificial lamb? It can be a bonus round. Who's your
Bonus.
sacrificial lamb? And it's not a let be me. Ryan has already selected me.
Oh, perfect.
I've selected Jodan, so you have to come up with someone else who's your sacrificial lamb. Jazz and Josh,
Probably
good luck.
Kev Sinclair. The
Mm.
reason for it
If
is
you
I
think
love
that
him,
man is going to go down, like
No, that's the point. I'm going to sacrifice him, and then a little bit later on, we'll come across him, and he'll just be like, "Yeah, fucking."
no, you'll come back and be like,
Does it have
"Do
to
you
come
think that
from
was
our
funny?"
existing team or a
Yeah.
new member? Because I mean, Michael is already the sacrificial lamb, and he's just going to keep coming back.
Yeah, he can get struck by lightning and he's still coming back.
Yeah.
We know this twice.
Yeah.
It's been proven historically.
For anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about, Michael Head is canonically unkillable in
Yeah,
every situation.
literally.
He's been shot, blown up, struck by lightning twice, stabbed in the balls,
Scorpion sting,
everything.
broken his neck.
Scorpion, broken his neck.
Yep.
Everything that has happened, that could happen, has happened to him. And it's just like, yeah, he's still fucking around. We
Yeah,
love the
the
guy,
guy
but
is
we're all
awesome.
tempted at this stage. We're all, I don't believe that anybody that's ever met Michael has not thought, how could I kill him?
Would he actually stay dead, or would he just come back?
How would I do it to make sure the job was carried out?
I feel like the lightning bolt would be like his leveling up thing, as in like it just like new level. Just
I have
vibrating.
lightning powers.
It's
So,
been
who's your
Frankenstein,
sacrificial
isn't it?
lamb,
He's lying
Josh?
there dead.
Josh, who you killing?
Like I said, it can't come from the existing team.
Cannot. By the way, this is going to be like the advert for this panel of Josh being like, I would kill this person. And then no context given. It'll just be that.
Just that.
Share it with them directly.
Let's see. Which author do I not like the least? Or the most, I guess. Let's go with that. Freak. Let's go with James, man. We'll take out James.
Oh, man.
Okay, fine. I'll kill Brian since he wants it.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. But like, no, James should have been on my team. Fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he'd be chipper
I mean,
enough beat.
using him as a meat shield is a freebie to get him on the team in the first place.
Yeah, James Hunter, yes. As in, like, that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be good.
I
And,
mean,
like, the
he's
whole
on the
Marine
team
thing,
until he becomes the meat shield. So
yeah, like in a past life, he literally was a pirate hunter. So
Yeah.
I'm like, it's pretty badass to have on your team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's a freebie to get him on the team until he dies. So
military vets. It's true. There's a lot of military vets though.
Also, Joe, yeah, like have you met the community?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like having all of these like tattooed, ripped men coming up to me, being like, "I like your books," and I'm like, "I know that terrifies me. Thank you so much."
But yeah, and like nobody picked Dakota either, and Dakota wasn't he a helicopter medic or something like that?
Yeah, he was a
Like,
medic, man.
yeah, so like he'd be a good pick too.
Yeah, especially paired with
no.
Michael. I mean,
No.
we should choose Michael's wife, but I don't know if she's actually released anything outside of a short story yet. So
She was in an anthology, but I think the really funny thing is that if you brought Dakota, like imagine walking around the wasteland and him just standing beside you being like, "I swear I am so useful when we find a helicopter."
His full
like,
abilities are only
it's like-
unlocked in
it's
the
like,
helicopter.
It is unreal. Like I have restricted access to my system, but when we find a helicopter, ooh. Just like Michael making spears out of twigs.
but you may roll your eyes so much with him that they don't work anymore just because of all the puns. So I mean,
Oh yeah, they might just fall out of your head.
yeah.
No, you've brought Aileron Kong, so it's going to be Gnome's rule every time you run into battle, and you're like, "Oh, for
Who's
And you're gonna be
Who's yelling?
running through the bushes every 10 seconds with your pants down, man.
Has he revealed who's yelling that yet? I don't think he has. I don't think we know who's yelling that yet.
Don't think so.
But yeah, so we're at 5 minutes, so we'll use the time to like do our outro and like promote your books and stuff. So Ryan, let's start with yourself. Tell us what you're working on and why should we read it?
So New System Who This is kind of my ongoing project on Royal Road, and I really like it just because it is post-apocalyptic, but it's kind of got a bit more of, I guess call it solo leveling feel to it. It's kind of much more focused on the world and how that's functioning with the monsters coming out of portals and whatnot. So that's kind of what I'm working on. And if you follow me on Facebook or any of my social medias, the goal with that is once my social medias reach a certain point, you get more chapters on Royal Road. Otherwise, I've written System Misinterpret, which is my next book to write after I finish editing Ether Collapse 5. And Ether Collapse is definitely what I'm probably most known for. And that's the adventures of Rockland. And if I say Azoth's name, is he going to wake up? No, he's just asleep. Okay. And Azoth and all that team. So, and that one's a lot of fun too. So give anything a read, obviously. And there's lots of other stuff in my brain that will hopefully I'll get to soon.
And did you not tell anyone about your harem name, Brian Daroon?
Brian Daroon? No, that I don't exist. How dare you?
Harem author confirmed. Jez, what do you?
Hi guys, I am working on this series at the moment, if I can get that right. Age of Stone is the first book in the series, Rise of Mankind. Like I say, book 6 is out a month ago, book 7 is out in about a week and a half, and I'm just rocking on. Quite happy here. Hope everybody's doing okay, so I'm all right.
Did Prototype come to Amazon, by the way?
No, it will be in March.
Will be in
releases
March.
in March. That's when the rules on it expire, the options. So it
Excellent.
comes soon.
Yeah. So yeah, secret story that Jez wrote that is coming in March that nobody knows about except a few people with the Yonder app.
It's
So
called Prototype.
yeah, name Prototype, yes. And over to you, Josh.
I'm Josh. I have a bunch of books out on Amazon. I also have a few series out on Royal Road, Dungeon Fall, and Created Ghost System. I just released a book the other week on Amazon called Wetworks. It's a non-lit RPG thriller. Check it out. I'm also in the final editing stages on the third book in Runes and Realms. So that'll be out sometime early next year.
Excellent. And I'm Brian J. Norden, and I write the Quest Academy series. Book 3 came out on the 4th of October, with audio coming on the 28th of January. I'm currently over on the Patreon and just uploaded the next, I think it's 6 chapters. So we're in the mid-60s at the minute, so you're more than welcome to come over and join and read along with everyone else. Yeah, so thank you, everyone, for a mediocre panel.
Whenever Brian's on it.
It's because I kept losing my train of thought. Okay, I take all responsibility.
No, you kept occasionally finding your train of thought.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the key difference right there. Yes.
I love this. I love this.
Welcome to What is the Question, Con? 2024.
That's
Yeah,
all.
you know,
That's all on Brian, by the way. All on
Yeah.
Brian. He should have written down the
Also-
questions.
also, the banner going in the wrong direction. It's pretty hard to write them down when you're making them up.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm super prepared for this. Anyway, it has been an absolute pleasure, everyone. So let's just do our awkward wave, or just glare at the
Thank
screen.
you, guys.
Glare at the screen until the end.